Today, we're going to talk about how you can get more sales. Hey, badass business owners, my name is Tammy, and I'm here to help you grow your business, but more importantly, grow those profits. What if I told you there are really only 3 ways that you can grow sales? If you think about it, you can get new customers, you can get your existing customers to come back more often, or you can get those customers to spend more money. Everything that you do to grow your sales falls into one of those 3 buckets. And one of the best ways to brainstorm and come up with some sales ideas is to actually use the buckets to help you out. Now, ideally, you want to try to do all of them, right? Because we all want our customers to spend more money, for example, and we want some new customers and we want people to come back. So usually it's kind of a hybrid of what we're doing. But I find that when people are trying to search for ways to grow their sales, they just don't know where to start. And they kind of like sit there and they tap their pencil or their pen going, oh, what could I do? What could I do? I'm going to encourage you, if you do this little trick and this little way of doing it by using the 3 buckets, it's actually going to help you out. So let's talk about them. So the first one you're always going to try to do is, how do I get more sales? That seems to be the default for people. Now, remember, when you're going for new customers, these are cold leads. These are people that have never used you before. Now, one of the best ways to get people is through referral, right? You're going to have other existing people say, hey, you need to go use this business. They're great. So you're going to have these referrals coming in from people that say they want to talk to you, right? That's one way that you can do that. Another way that you can get new people is through many different types of advertising, right? They're going to see your ad. They're going to see your social media ad. It might be print. It might be something that you pay for. It might be that you pay for a service like Angie's List or something else that also is going to let them know about you. So that's another avenue that you can go. And by the way, in each of these little sub things that we're coming about, you can actually break them down into even more things. Sometimes people just stumble across you. Probably the number one way that people find you today is through Google, right? They're going to pick up their phone and they are going to start searching. And most of the time they're going to be searching on Google. That doesn't mean they're not using Bing or they're not using any of the other ones that are out there, but it's really important that you have an online presence. And I'm not just talking about your website. Your website is probably number 2 because they're going to go from one of those search engines over to your website and they need to be put together. But one of the things that you want to do when you're looking to increase those sales is you need to make sure that your Google page or any other business profile page that you have is working really well, because that's one of the main areas that people do. It's our first instinct nowadays. We pick up our phone and we Google it. So as you can tell, getting new customers, there's a bunch of stuff, and I can go on and on and on. And I've talked about this in some of the other videos, but I just want you to think going, okay, if I'm thinking about how I'm going to get new people, let's break it down as to what are some of those different ways that I can get new people. And as I mentioned, that's probably the number one thing that a lot of people do. But I'm going to encourage you to look at the other 2 buckets, because a lot of times there's some low-hanging fruit when it comes to our existing customers, how to get them to come back more often, and then our 3rd bucket, which is to get them to spend more money. So let's talk about those existing customers. One of the best ways to get your existing customers to come back is through the experience that they have. If they have a wonderful experience, they're more likely to come back. If they have a wonderful experience, they're more likely to tell other people about it as well. But the main goal is, how do we get them to come back? If you think about a grocery store, a big box retailer, their goal is to get you to come in 2 to 3 times a week. Grocery stores need you to go in a couple times a week, because there's some people that go in once a month, or once a week, stuff like that. But then there's other people that like to go every single day or every few days. And their goal is, how do they keep you to do that? So how do you get that frequency? How do you get them to come back more often? That's really what you're thinking about. One area that is highly missed opportunity is people going back into their database and staying in touch with their past clients. Nowadays, almost everybody ends up giving you their email, or they're giving away emails like crazy. You can do it a lot of different ways to get people's emails. And if you're a service-based business, 9 times out of 10, you already have it. And I can't tell you how many small businesses businesses, do not go back and touch bases with people. Like if somebody uses your service and it's a service they can use every, say, 6 months or so, when was the last time, or do you even have anything in place that goes back to your people from 6 months ago to remind them it's time to schedule their new service? A lot of times we're like, oh, I'm so glad you did that because I totally forgot to do it. There's businesses that I use that if we didn't have a regular schedule, I probably would forget about them, and if you don't believe me, those of you that get your teeth cleaned, for example, if they didn't make that 6-month appointment for you to remind you, would you remember to go? Probably not. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to look at that repeat business and people that are already in your pipeline, and how are you staying in touch with them? How are you keeping them coming back? If it's a business that they only use once a year, great. Do you have a 1-year reminder? If it's 2 years, great. Do you have a 1-year reminder? It still is an issue. Now, for those of you that have businesses that you'd like them to come back weekly or monthly or something like that, what are some things that you've created that really encourage them to come back weekly or monthly? A lot of people it was really big at one point for the loyalty cards and all that, but now people do it through the apps in most cases, and they're getting that free stuff. And that's one of the reasons they like to go back. So think about in your end, what is something that you could do in your business that's going to encourage them to use you weekly or biweekly or monthly or whatever the case may be. So when you're brainstorming the existing people bucket, ask yourself, what are you currently not doing that you should be doing? And what are some things that you can do that will create them that hunger, that want for them to be able to come back more often? Now, in our third bucket, which is to get them to spend more money, there's a lot of different things that we can do in that as well. First and foremost, are you priced right? I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people where they're not priced correctly. And if you got priced correctly, then most of the time they're going to spend more money in the first place. But I'm going to challenge you one better before I go ever deeper into this is, do you even know what your average ticket is? Do you even know, when was the last time you put how much you did in sales divided by how many customers you had and find out what that average ticket even is? Because a lot of times when I'm talking to people and I'm asking about their average ticket, I get met with crickets. And when I get met by crickets, I know that they don't have an idea. And then if they pause for a second and then they just guess a number, I pretty much know they're just guessing a number. Or they might be going, well, I have a service for $79. I have a service for $130, $500. It's probably about $200. Well, not really, because if the 500 is only done once or twice and the 79 is done 100 times and the one in the middle is done maybe 4 or 5 times, your average is probably closer to 100, 120 maybe, much lower than what you think it is. So it's really important that you figure out what your average ticket is. Which leads us to the next part, is asking yourself, how do I get that average ticket up, right? We already talked about pricing. What's some other things that we could do? We've heard bundling, where they get this service, but hey, since I'm already out here, I can go ahead and do this at the same time for this price. And it's going to be much lower than what your normal price is. Now, why are you able to do that and still make some money? Simple. You're already there. And in most cases, some of those add-on items add maybe 10, 15 minutes to it, or it can be done in conjunction. So your labor costs really aren't going up and you're just getting more money out of whatever it is, the product or service that you have. And if you're brick and mortar, this is where you're looking for people to throw other things onto the cart, onto the ticket. If you think about the last time that you were at any grocery store or really any big box retailer, before you can check out, you have to go through a wall of soda, candy, chips, snacks, all that stuff. Why? Because they make good money on that. Okay. It increases their average ticket $2 to $3 every time you throw something from the front of the register into the cart. And they make good money on those. That's how they increase their profits, because those have good profit margins on them as well. And if you've seen the price of some of those things over the last couple of years, they have been going up like crazy. So once again, can you bundle some stuff? Can you create some add-ons? There's a reason why, think about Christmas time when you open up a toy or a kid opens up a toy and it needs batteries. One of the best things that a business can do is put batteries with those toys. Or if you have a register, if they can see that it needs batteries, is your team even asking them if they need batteries? Is there something else that they want? I had somebody install something the other day, and it reminded me of an example I used to use all the time when I was with Home Depot, which was plumber's tape. If somebody would have sold it in the first place and said, hey, don't forget the plumber's tape, there it would have made the install 10 times easier, but there was an add-on right there that easily goes with it. So there's a lot of times there's things that would benefit the customer if they had the add-on. People just need to be able to explain it. Another fantastic thing that a lot of people started catching on to, and some people do, and you may or may not use it, is warranties. Did you know that 80% of warranties never get used? It's just free money. So if you can create a warranty that's $25, $50, $100, where it extends the life of the existing warranty, the reason they do that is because most people never claim on them. And I think it's even higher than 80%. It's some crazy number that, yes, you are going to have some people that claim it, but the vast majority of people will not. And you're going to create such a profit margin off of those suckers that it will pay for any time you have to go back and redo something. So if you offer a warranty, whether it's 6 months, a year, or 5 years, look at having an add-on where it increases that warranty time. It's another great way to get some add-on sales. And more importantly, those give a really good margin to them. I could go on, but because there's hundreds of different sales ideas that are out there. But if you really focus on the 3 buckets, new customers, repeat customers, and average ticket, I think you're going to find that if you go through each bucket slowly and really start trying to say, hey, let me brainstorm within that bucket, I think that you're going to find that you're going to find all kinds of ways that you can increase your sales, increase your profits, and get to making more money. Hopefully that helps you out. I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.